Welcome back to another playoff edition of the Packs What She Said podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Maggie Loney, joined as always by Perry Goldstein. And if you're watching the YouTube video of this show, you might notice that there's a third box. There's a third guest here joining us today, Dusty Evely of Cheesehead TV, Packer Report, Pack-A-Day,
the internet.
So excited to have you here. We've been meaning to do this.
Yeah, no, listen, this is awesome. Thank you so much for the invite. Last time I saw you guys, the Packers were throwing up 18 unanswered points against the Saints, and we're just having the time of our lives. So always love talking football with you guys. I feel like it's been too long, even though I saw you this season. But thank you for having me on. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is it's good luck, right? You know, like last time we were all together.
That's exactly it.
Won, so
I was literally going to say, I don't think I've ever watched a football game, a Packers game with Dusty where the Packers have lost. So, because we the three of us plus Andy also went to the Lions game. They won in a great game. What was that? 2021 season. That was fun. For those of you, I'm just going to plug you really quick, Dusty. For those of you who don't listen or read any of Dusty's work, it's phenomenal. I always learn something. You are all about to learn something on this show. Dusty is amazing, especially when it comes to offense and offensive passing concepts and just the offense scheme in general. It's awesome. Dusty is one of my favorite football people on the internet. So I'm pumped that you are here. And just people. You are good people. So
entirely
this is going to be
too kind. I am very embarrassed. Entirely too kind. Thank you, Perry.
And Dusty does an awesome show with John Kuhn. So you should all check that out.
Thank you.
So we are talking about more Packers playoff football. Somehow in the depths of this 2023 season, this youngin group has made it to the divisional round. And of course, through the script writers, well done, clap, clap. They have this team going to San Francisco, as they do, to take on the 1 seed San Francisco 49ers. We got the final injury report right before we started recording, and both teams are actually very healthy. Good news for the Packers. Good news for the 49ers, I guess, too. So we'll take a look. No, we were saying pre-show, it is always, always good for football and for football fans when two teams meet head-to-head at their healthiest. It's freaking awesome when that happens, especially this late in the season. You don't really ever get that. The Packers also played the Cowboys at pretty much full strength, minus a one A.J. Dillon. So they're going into this game obviously down J.J. Enikbare, which is really unfortunate to the torn ACL, but they are potentially going to get A.J. Dillon back. Aforementioned A.J. Dillon, he's questionable. Jair is questionable, but said from Matt LaFleur that he is in a better place this week at this point than he was last week at this point. So arrow pointing in the right direction to get Ja back. Key against this high-power 49ers offense. The other two are Isaiah McDuffie and Daniel Whelan, the punter, is also questionable, which is just such an interesting – don't know the last time I saw that, but hey, here's the solution. Don't need to punt. There we go. And as for the 49ers, also super healthy, their only out is Cleveland Farrell. And their questionable is Dre Greenlaw, which I know we will get into when we talk about their defense. So, two healthy teams.
Yeah, two healthy teams, two very familiar head coaches. Obviously, we can get started here with the Packers offense, but Matt LaFleur is, I think it's 2-1 against Shanahan in the regular season. And then, of course, is 0-2 in the postseason. So Kyle always seems to have his number in the playoffs, even though Matt LaFleur schemes up some really nice things in the regular season. So let's talk about this new Matt LaFleur offense, because, of course, every time they've played, he's had Aaron Rodgers under center. So really different team this year. Not really any playoff experience on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Aaron Jones, Elton Jenkins, like that's about it. A.J. Dillon, I guess, technically, but really young guys, young skill position players, and like Perry said already, really a healthy offense. And Dusty, really quickly, I guess before we dive into the 49ers, I would really like just your quick thoughts. I know you said you waited to watch the game, but how fun was it to see this young offense in their playoff debut, the performance, especially out of Jordan Love, who now we're hoping obviously can compound and build on that in the divisional round?
Oh my goodness! Like just tremendous. Like anytime, one of the complaints I'm overhearing is when I logged on, after the game. So like as that Rams Lions game was like closing up shop, I was like, oh, what did people say about the Packers games? Some of it was, well, I wish the Packers would have run more time off the clock. They ran 8 plays in the third quarter. It took like 4 minutes of game time. And they scored 2 touchdowns. Like you can't run time. Like they checked into a run off of their big pass and they got 27 yards. Like they couldn't slow themselves down. Like it was. All facets of the game were great. I mean, it's been talked about ad nauseum at this point, but how you don't have the number one, and anyone can go off at any given time. Like Dobbs had been fine. Like he had games where he like 1 catch, 8 yards, 4 catches, 76 yards, something like that. He blew up in this game. Reed without a target, Watson without a single. Watson got 1 target, 1 catch for like 8 yards or something off a little hitch. But what I love about watching them is they cannot be getting the ball. They're all blocking like crazy. They're all playing hard. They're all exactly where they're supposed to be for the most part, which is not something we saw early in the year. Just watching a guy like Dobbs, who has had some issues this year with drops, and we've seen some of that. Some of the catches he made and the run after the catch, it was just one of those like, oh, he got rewarded. That was great. He had a big game, which means he probably won't this week. Wicks had that touchdown off a filthy route, and just that throw from Love, like goodness gracious, like he knew that was zero blitz coming. And that's the other thing too with Love. He's making these throws, but he's checking to that stuff. Like he used cadence, he checked into that, he brought Kraft in, he had all the protection all sorted out. And then when it came to it, is I know I need my guy. I need an extra split second. What if I just fade away and then just throw a dot back to the back corner or the back of the end zone? He's playing. The one thing I'll say, he has sailed a couple to the outside. So there are still a handful of accuracy things, but everything else that we had questions with early in the year, with the speed of the game, obviously he looked comfortable early on in the season. I think he's gotten more comfortable, and I think what that has led to then is he's a little more consistent. The deep ball was a problem early in the year. Deep ball's not a problem anymore. He will occasionally sail the short ones. If he's hitting everything else, like he understands where he's supposed to go. He understands the checks. He understands everything about this offense. What I was saying even early in the year when things weren't going well, his eyes are going to the right place. His eyes are good. His eyes have been good. It's just, can he put everything else together? And he's just been nails down the stretch, man. Like some of these throws, it was 21 passes. I wish it was only 20. I wish he went on the Cape, the 158.3 perfect rating there, but he's done everything and above. I think they put more on his plate in terms of protection stuff as the season's gone on. Cause he can handle it now. Like it's full go. It's been amazing to watch him kind of progress and the young team along with him too.
So you're saying he can still get better?
I am. I'm trying not to get my hopes up because I'm like, if this is what he is, this is so good. If this is what he is, this is great. Yeah. But he's got these little things on the margins that, he could potentially get better. Maybe he's not that guy. Maybe he's always going to sail the checkdowns. He was that guy in college as well. But
I say that in jest, obviously. I say that in jest. However, he had, like you mentioned, a nearly perfect passer rating in this game in his very first playoff game against the 2 seed of a very good team. And he still has moments where he can, quote unquote, do better. It feels like the ceiling is still exponentially growing, which is kind of a scary thought. I love that you brought up that in this game, it was Dobbs who had his big break. In this upcoming 49ers game, it could be somebody else. And that's been the beauty of this season and this team. Is something Maggie and I have focused on a lot, which is that there isn't a one. And I think it's why this offense actually runs so effectively, is because everyone blocks, everyone's in on the run game. You brought up Reed didn't have a catch. Well, he said post game, I don't care. We're moving on. I will block all day long. Mm-hmm. If it means that we win this game, I don't care. It's a really amazing all for one and one for all kind of mentality. If you had to pick it based on what this defense brings and looking to maybe exploit some of their weaknesses, who would you think is going to be the guy who could go off in this game? Like, not that I think there is going to be a one,
Right.
but just given what you think Matt LaFleur is going to want to do against the 49ers, I'm curious who that guy is going to be.
I could go a couple different ways. I could see it a couple different ways. One of them, I will say, and it's just because he's been my dude as the season's gone on, is Tucker Kraft. What he's been able to do, run game, pass game, and I think what they're going to want to do, I think they're going to have to live in a lot more 12 stuff as Musgrave gets a little more healthy. I think they're going to run some more of that stuff. And the way Kraft has come along has been incredible. So I think they're going to try to do that, especially if Greenlaw's out, and you can. Not that you want to attack the middle of the field if Fred Warner's there, but you got two tight ends. You can play games with the inside of that that second level of the defense there with those two guys. So I think Kraft is a possibility. You get Musgrave as not the decoy, but the guy who, again, seam stretcher. You push him a little more vertically, Kraft on the underneath stuff, and you see him with the ball in his hands, and he just runs like a lunatic. So I think he's a possibility. The other guy, and maybe this is just wishful thinking, I'll go Christian Watson. He's been healthy. He's been out there. He was out there this past week on a kind of a snap count. He's clearly affecting defenses. He is still blocking. He's still doing good stuff. And I think what the Packers are going to do, one of the things, they're going to have to run, but I think they're going to, you can attack vertically if you can block it up. I think you can take your shots. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a game where they go max protect, shot to Christian Watson first play of the game. Like that wouldn't shock me a bit. And I think as you start doing that, I think they're going to take their shots. As you start doing that, you get Fred Warner playing that Tampa linebacker and he's dropping back, you attack the middle a little bit more. So I wouldn't be shocked if Watson, that hamstrings are tricky at the very least. I mean, if anyone's had a hamstring injury and then you try to run on it, you can't. Like, it's awful. So those suckers are tricky. But if he's feeling good and he's up to like a full snap count, I think Watson could very well be that dude this week. That's, again, maybe that's wishful thinking on my part.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go. I was just going to say, Watson played well into the fourth quarter. So I think again, I could be wishful thinking with you, Dusty, but I imagine being up that much against the Cowboys, if his hamstring was at all iffy and funky, you would think they would have pulled him.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's full go.
Yeah, I was going to say, knock on wood. This is why I have wood paneling in my 1970s basement. But the Packers, I think one of the keys to this, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is to play mistake-free football. And Jordan Love has been very, very good at doing that down the stretch here. And this is a 49er secondary that I think is going to test them a little bit more than they've potentially been tested. Like, Deron Bland had the flashy numbers and the interceptions returned for touchdowns, but like Javarius Ward's second team All-Pro, 5 picks, 23 passes defensed. Like, this is a secondary that is ball hawking. I think they have 22 picks, most in the league. So if there was ever a time to actually play mistake-free football on offense, which again, they've been very good at doing, protecting the football is really paramount in this one. And, Dusty, you mentioned some of like the overthrows and some of the errant balls. And they happen, but I think there's less room for that in this kind of matchup than there has been in previous weeks against previous secondaries.
Yeah, and I will say one thing about the overthrows, one thing that I mentioned this somewhere else this week as well, that I was kind of excited about as far as his misses. So a lot of those little quick outs, his little 5-yard out routes, early in the season, he was missing those inside. And that was my big thing, is like I assume the deep ball will come, but those suckers he's missing inside, someone's going to take that to a pick six. Yeah. Those are high and outside now. So even those he's missing in a way that like do not necessarily lead to interception. So like there's at least that, but there are still some. I think there was that slant to Dobbs this past week. They threw like kind of back hip and he had room to the inside. I kind of thought initially he was protecting from the safety or the linebacker, and I don't think that was close enough. I think that was just slightly off. And Niners, you got some guys who got some hands on some balls, so he's gonna have to be pinpointing this game.
Yeah. All right, we got to talk about the front, because I feel like when you think about the 49ers, for me, I think about their inside linebackers, which we've mentioned already. I don't know why that is, but I think Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner are the best duo in the league. And the Packers have been so different from the Aaron Rodgers era, who was absolutely adverse to hitting the middle of the field. Like, Love goes there readily and often, but he can only do that, right? You mentioned it, Dusty, if he has time. And I thought the Packers offensive line played maybe their best game of the season against the Cowboys. I mean, Micah Parsons is an absolute game wrecker, and they held him to a singular pressure, which is no small feat. They're going to have to play like that again in this game. And it's not just one guy on this front that you're blocking either, right? They traded for Chase Young. They got Eric Armstead. They've got a Nick Bosa. They're healthy, which is great, but this is going to be about keeping Jordan Love upright. I think he's gotten so much better. I mean, you think about Jordan Love, like your first impression of him was that horrible, horrible game versus Kansas City where he could not do anything against pressure. And now he's become great against pressure. But this is a team that's going to make you play, off your back foot, So they're going to have answers for this, and it's going to be a big game from the offensive line.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even if I'm not mistaken, that Parsons had one pressure and that was off. That was unblocked because DeGuara didn't get off his motion in time. Like that was the single Micah Parsons pressure. And I mean, Dallas also has Tank Lawrence, who's causing problems earlier. Like they have a good protection plan. And part of that is the guys up front. You've got, and then again, Tucker Kraft, you had a lot of chip release from tight ends. You had one, I think that was a touchdown to Wicks. That was Patrick Taylor chipped on Micah Parsons, chipped on the edge, chip release on Micah Parsons. He was in line on the left and he chip release. So you've got everyone buying in there. Like I said, it's going to be tough. They're going to have a plan. It's an attacking front. I think they'll be able to run on them. I do think because of how aggressive they are, I think you can catch them on some games. I think you can do that. But again, like you look at what Love did. I've been tracking blitz numbers all year. The Vikings blitzed him 75% of the time in that second matchup. 75% of the time. And he was just absolute killed that stuff. And then even the pressure stuff, even when not blitzed, I can't remember exactly. I think this year he finished and get EPA per play, I think 6th in the league against no blitz pressure this year as well. So I mean, it's still not great. Like you don't want to be pressured, but also a lot of that pressure was a result of, if you look at, anytime you look at pressure numbers, it's always what was the average time to throw, average time to pressure. His average time to pressure was like 3.1 seconds or something, which means he's holding onto the ball. He's looking for something. And so it's not exactly immediate pressure, which means the line's doing their job. So he is going to have to work, but he's one of the other things I've been really impressed that he's gotten better at this year. Early in the year, it seemed like it was, if there's pressure in his face, if someone's coming at him, he didn't know when to cut bait on a play. He'd still be looking downfield. He'd try to run. He'd take a hit. He'd take a sack. He would do whatever. He's gotten so good at he'll take off running immediately or he'll throw the ball away. He wasn't throwing the ball away at all earlier this year. Yeah. So I think, like I said, I think the line's going to have to be great, but they've had a good protection plan, and Love has done such a good job with sussing that stuff out pre-snap, figuring that out, setting the protection, and then knowing where his hots are if he thinks he needs them. Like he's done. The Cowboys tried to throw some stuff at him, and he figured all of that stuff out. And so the Niners defense is tougher. It's going to be tough for him. But I mean, listen, I'm still on Love. I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop. Like he can't be this good this quickly because the middle of the season was not that long ago, and he did not look that good. But he's handling everything they're throwing at him right now. So he's at some point, maybe it falls apart, but my hopes are too high, man. I don't think it's going to be this week. I think he's looked comfortable. So as long as they protect up front and they've shown that they can, and if they can't, he knows to get the ball out quickly, and they've got answers for that. LaFleur's got answers for that. Like I think they'll really have time. I think they're going to take their shots, but I also think you're going to see a fair amount of misdirect stuff up front as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of this too, right? As we've kind of said, like Perry and I said, we've been using a Cinderella metaphor a lot this season, and normally the bad kind of the metaphor where we talk about Joe Barry and, the pumpkin-esque nature of some of his defensive performances. But then the other side of this is that you have the Cinderella story of this young team, and exactly to your point about like waiting for the other shoe to drop, like there are expectations now going into these games, right? And yes, the Packers are heavy underdogs going into this one, but you can't put up a performance like you did in the wild card round and then not at least have some expectation that it is possible. It's not like I've seen the comparisons all week. Like, well, it's not like they won on a last second field goal. Like this was a very dominant performance against a very good Cowboys team. So there are expectations that they will be able to go toe to toe with what has been one of the juggernauts of the regular season. But yeah, the Nick Bosa thing, I think, is probably the biggest storyline, at least for me, when you look at this Packers offense, because it's just so familiar. I mean, the last time they played in the divisional round, 5 sacks, not from Nick Bosa, but from that front in general, 3 sacks in 2019. So if Jordan Love can get some protection and have the kind of day, maybe probably a little bit worse than the day he had in Dallas, there's a lot of really big things possible for this team.
And also shout out Aaron Jones for what he did in pass protection this past week. He's playing so many snaps, and he was just crushing Parsons over and over again. Just terrific.
Also, he's not a big back. You know, like he is 5'9". Like he is. Yeah, they had such a good plan. I mean, shout out Stanovich for that plan. I'm sure they're going to have another one going into this, but it's going to be no small feat. I think the game plan, and Dusty, I want your thoughts on this. I mean, the game plan should not look too different going up against this team. Although, to your point, I think the middle of the field is just not going to be as safe of a space, if you will. Like, I think you want to get the run game going early and often, as much as humanly possible. You mitigate that pass rush that way, and time of possession, you know, keeping their offense off the field, all that to that point. But I don't know. There's part of me that's like, just play your brand of offense. Don't try to do too much. I think there's something about Shanahan where Matt LaFleur gets too cute, like with his former boss. I don't know what it is, but I think you play your brand of offense and you be sharp about it. Like Maggie said, you protect the football, which Love has been doing. I expect them to be competitive. This is not a game I expect them to walk out of San Francisco with a win, but you can go in and you can be competitive if you can play the way that they've been playing the second half of the season.
Yeah, and we've seen them a little bit too. I mean, I mentioned that the Vikings game earlier. There's a couple games in the middle of the season where one of the things the Vikings like to do, I mean, goes back to Zimmer, is whatever, mug the A gap, and then you drop those linebackers out, which makes the middle of the field dicey to throw against because you don't know if they're blitzing, you don't know if they're dropping back. If they're dropping back, how much is the picture changing? That second Viking game, LaFleur basically was like, we're targeting outside the numbers. It was like an old school Aaron Rodgers game plan. We're running fades, we're running outs. They had a handful of targets in the middle of the field, and they've got options there in case they need them. But they more or less avoided the middle of the field. It's like, it's muddy in there. We don't know what those guys are going to do when they drop out, but they can't drop wide enough to take away like a 10-yard out route, and we can throw that. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's a little bit of that. Now, to your point earlier, I mean, they've got good cornerbacks as well, so it's going to be tough, and you got to be on time with all of that stuff. But I do think I wouldn't be shocked if this one they do kind of shy away from the middle of the field, at least in the first half, until they see what the Niners are doing on defense a little bit more. It seemed like it was, for what LaFleur had been doing, it seemed like it was a little safer of a game plan. I say that they put up 48 points. I guess the pick six accounted for some of those, but say they a little safer in terms of like they didn't do a whole lot of. They were running like end arounds a bunch to Bo Melton and a lot of little trick plays. They obviously had the leak touchdown to Musgrave, but they didn't have a lot of the weird trickery stuff against the Cowboys. I wonder if to play with the linebackers, to mess with the front a little bit, if they have saved some of that for this week. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they come out with a lot of kind of funkiness, 3 or 4 really like trickery looking plays, which we've seen those goes good. And again, we were at the Saints game. We've seen those goes bad as well. So I guess we'll kind of see how those play out, but I wouldn't be shocked if they lean into that a little more.
So you're saying Keyshawn Nixon is going to get some offensive snaps, is what I'm hearing this week.
He's only got that one this year, hasn't he? Has he gotten another one? Just that one snap?
Just the one we got to witness.
They've been saving it for the divisional round, man.
I'm hopeful that we will see more Jaden Reed in this game, because I think your point about Christian Watson was an apt one, but I think with the two of their amount of speed, you want to try to stretch this defense as like much as humanly possible.
As I was talking about that and you were like, who could go off? Isn't it kind of awesome that I had 6 different dudes in my head and I was like, you could make a solid case for any one of these guys. It's incredible.
It's amazing. Should we switch over? I know it's not as fun to talk about the Packers defense, but
let's do it.
Okay. The Packers have an interesting.
And that's the show. All right, thanks.
You guys are breaking up. My connection's breaking up. I'm so sorry.
They have an interesting task ahead of them. This offense scares me. And it's interesting because, look, you go into the Cowboys game, right, and you're like, all right, Dak is having probably like one of the best seasons of his career. He's thrown the most touchdown passes in the league. CeeDee Lamb is having literally an all-pro season, but that's kind of who you need to stop, right? There's nobody else on that team. Like you just got to stop them. And they did that, right? They did not have a good game, and they were able to stop the run. Great. This team, you're accounting for a whole host of weapons and an offensive-minded coach that is, I mean, on par with like the best in the league. I'm nervous. I'm very nervous.
Right? My thing this whole week, it comes down to Brock Purdy. I'm sure you've watched some of the stuff of him at like Iowa State, and like, how did this guy who's doing the dumbest things possible on a football field turn into the guy in the field? And there's times that he will turn into a guy who just chucked that ball up for grabs. If you can crush the pocket from the inside, if you can make him uncomfortable in the pocket, he's going to throw you some. And I mean, who was it? Devontae Wyatt said something to that effect this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100% right. Like, his pressure numbers are good. When he's pressured, he has been good. Generally, that's from outside the pocket. So if you rush him from the outside and he can get outside, he can make something happen. That interior of the 49ers offensive line is bad. It's bad against the pass. If they can, I mean, first things first, talk Niners, they got to stop their run, right? You got to stop the run, or else they won't stop running. So if you can slow it down enough and you make Brock Purdy do something with Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt playing like they've been playing, if you can crush that interior of the line, he's going to give you 3 chances, and you just got to come down with them. Like, to me, that's I have been trying to think of like any way I've thought about, like, well, how can they do to slow down this Niners defense? It's all stuff we know Joe Barry won't do. Like, he won't, so it doesn't matter. So it's good. They're going to score their points. They're going to get their yards. You got to hold on to the interceptions. Like, that's basically where this comes down to for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we expected the Cowboys game to be a boat race, and
Mm-hmm.
the Packers held up their end, of that. And Dak was in the same situation. He was protecting the ball really well. He had a relatively turnover-free season, was seeing the field a lot better. We had said in the pregame show before the wild card round that, Dak was not rattleable this season like he had been previously. He could take a sack and then still pick up a first down. Like, I'm not sure Brock Purdy is there yet. And I think the Ravens kind of laid the blueprint for that. Like, he was so shaken up in that game, and he reverted back to, like you said, the Iowa State Brock Purdy. And I think, the large part of this year, obviously, is that if McCaffrey can do whatever he wants, it doesn't matter how poorly the quarterback's playing, because he can just hand him the ball, 97 times, and it is what it is. And the Niners are 10-1 when McCaffrey has 75 yards.
I mean, Kyle might do that. Like, he is. Look, here's my other thing is, and this is what I mean by like the coaching, like, meta bowl, is that like McCarthy, I love Big Mike. We all love Big Mike, but Big Mike in big moments sometimes makes not the brightest. Like, sometimes the simplest decision is the smart one, and Kyle will make the simple smart decision, which is hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey until this defense proves that they can stop him. And like, he knows he's done it before. Raheem Mostert haunts my dreams, right? So like, he knows that he can do that, and it's to be determined if this Packers defense will be able to stop Christian McCaffrey. Now, Dusty, you made an excellent point here where Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt on the interior have been playing very well. I mean, Kenny is playing his best football of the season so far. So if you can get a handful of stops, and this is why I'm actually, it sucks to lose JJ Enagbare, because he's had a number of like very important tackles for losses in the last couple of weeks in the run game. So if you can get a handful of those on Christian McCaffrey, easier said than done, you can change the game plan a little bit and make Brock Purdy throw. I don't know. I've been thinking about this all week, and I want to ask, they used to move Zadarius Smith inside to rush inside.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Joe's going to do this, but I'm curious if moving Rashawn to rush inside in this game is something that would be really creative and fun and a good place to attack, like you said, an interior that isn't that great. Rashawn sometimes oftentimes rushes too far past the quarterback on the outside, right? And then he just can't get there. You rush inside, and at least you're pushing your guy into the quarterback, right? You're using that speed and that power to just at least disrupt the pocket. I don't know. I would love to see them just move him inside and see what happens, especially against this line.
I'm in the exact same boat. I think the best approach is you get Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt. You give LVN some more snaps because he's flashed. He's not been great so far this year. But if him and Preston are on the edge, like these big body, we're not going to let you outside dudes. And then Rashawn is just chaos creator in the middle. Like you said, Zadarius would just like line up sideways in the A gap. Basically, he'd make himself as small. It was like there's the tilted nose technique, like your nose tackle. He was doing that, but like in the A gap, and then just knife through because there's nothing you can do with it. I do think that's probably the best path forward. It is potentially the last game of the year. Now, the other thing is like this defense might be gassed because they played like 90 snaps. They played like 90 snaps against the Cowboys. Now they're on a short week and got to fly out to San Francisco. There's a chance all those dudes are just so tired. And like, I can't play more than 20 snaps this week, coach. I cannot do it. But if they want to do it, and if you want to go get your one-on-ones, right? You get like 5 defensive linemen or 4, and then Rashawn like head up, standing up, do the Myles Garrett crossover deal over the center with LVN and Preston as your edges. Again, the interior defensive line or offensive line is bad. Like that would be incredible.
Joe, do you have an idea?
Well, and like you said, for all of Pettin's faults, this is like looking back on like past memories and like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. That was pretty good. For all of Pettin's faults, that dude could dial up a blitz. Like that dude was creative with his usage. I saw him do 3-man rushes off like a 7-man front and get a free rusher off a 3-man rush. Like for all of his faults, dude was creative with how he deployed that stuff. Like you said, I'm in the same boat, man, because I was like, mug and do sim pressures. Joe doesn't do that. So he's probably not going to. But the thought of Rashawn Gary like head up over the center or lined up in the A gap, it's enough to get me excited, even if I know it won't happen, Terry.
It's like, was it Christian Ringo how many years ago that just ran directly from the sideline?
The Seahawks game.
That's the strategy. Just bring pressure from everywhere. Just don't let him know.
Tackle on that sucker too. Love that play.
don't let him know where it's coming.
Don't hit me with that DB blitz, man. Don't hit me with that. You know how much I love that. No, but I mean, look, like you said it might be their last game of the season. It probably is like throw the kitchen sink at them, like surprise them. I think like something about the 49ers, and I think the Packers dealt with this too when they were the 1 seed, the 2 seed. When you're the team to beat, so to speak, you kind of have to throw surprises at those teams. You have to knock them off their spot. You have to surprise them. I mean, the Packers used to get hit with those like trick plays. I think about the Lions, like Matt Stafford used to throw a flea flicker and they never used to know what to do with it because he'd be like, oh, clutch my pearls. You did something cool and surprising against us. What? You're not supposed to do that. Like, and that's kind of what this Packers team has on their side in this game, which is that a little bit of that unexpected sprinkle of the underdog magic, which is they can throw some of that fun stuff at them, and I think they should.
And it seems like LaFleur has really relished doing that this year as well, so I think they will. Well, somewhere right now, Joe Barry is like drawing up a game plan, and he's thoughts. He's got Rashawn Gary. He's got a little magnet of Rashawn Gary over the center. He goes, no, that's what they'll think I do, and he just draws up the most boring spot drop cover through you've ever seen in your life. Like that's him right now getting ready for this game.
Right now, he's dialing up Preston Smith on Deebo Samuel.
Cool.
But I mean, like we talked about it, right? This Packers offense needs to protect the football. This is how they can theoretically steal this one from San Fran. And Brock Purdy's done a nice job protecting the football, but in all the ways we just talked about, he can also throw you a couple. And the Niners are 1-3 this season when they've given up 2 or more turnovers. The Packers are 5-1 when they're forcing 2 or more turnovers. So like the key to success is there. You saw it against the Cowboys. I know, like, you know, we talked about it too post game, like the numbers for the Cowboys looked much more impressive than the actual performance on the field. CD, Gallup, they all eclipsed 100 yards. They won time of possession, but it was the turnover battle. And how do you keep an explosive offense at bay you sustain your drives on offense and you steal a couple on defense. And that was the recipe for success in Dallas. And it's the exact same recipe, I think, in Santa Clara. If you steal one or two possessions, especially if you're talking about the potential of like doubling up at the half, and if you start the ball with the second, it's just there's so many little things that I think they can do. But the biggest one, of course, is getting after Brock Purdy.
That's got to be the key. If there's no pressure on him, I think the Packers are going to throw out 50 to win this game. They might have to anyway. Yeah,
they could.
Especially with, elephant in the room is, does Jair play or not, right? Because he's questionable. We don't really know where he's at with the ankle. You like to hope, but if it's Carrington Valentine and Corey Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon against Debo and Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, I'm not feeling great about that, right? I'm really not. Because one of them, if not two of them, are getting theirs. And then you're really, we've said it all season, Maggie and I, is like this defense goes as the front goes. If the front is getting pressure, if the front is disruptive, it makes everybody's life on the back end easier. And you can say, well, yeah, Perry, that's freaking obvious, but it's especially true with the way that they call this defense. And it's extra true when your top all-pro corner is not playing. Because I assure you, if Jair was not playing in this Cowboys game, it would have been a lot closer. Yeah. I don't know. And maybe that's a hot take, but
that interception he had is a play that no one else on that team makes. Like no one else makes that pick and down at the 12-yard line. Like that. Now I wouldn't say that was defining moment in the game because the Savage pick six put the game away. That's a huge point in that game because it was 7-0, right? That's how they got their second touchdown was off. They had just punted. Their only punt where Jordan Love was not really in the game was that one, and it was the Cowboys were only down 7. That was a huge moment, and that was just Jair being Jair. No one else makes that play, so that was a huge impact in that game.
Yeah, and I think Keyshawn Nixon had arguably his best game of the season against the Cowboys, so there's a lot you really like, right, to build off of. But again, these guys are so gassed from all of the snaps that they played and the minutes that they played that you hope they have enough stamina to do it. And I also hope that Isaiah McDuffie is out there on Saturday, and maybe that's a little hot takey, but Perry and I have talked about his impact for a lot of the season, and he's had really nice flashes, and especially when you're talking about disrupting the run game. He's not gonna leak out and cover Debo. That's not what his role will be. But if you need a presence to help contain the run, he's been really good at that this season. So if he can't go, that would be another, kind of concern for the middle of the defense.
Yeah, we know Kyle likes to put those linebackers in blenders anyway. So McDuffie out there on pass stuff might be tough. They're going to test his eyes with all the motion and stuff anyway. It's going to be hard even with McDuffie, but without McDuffie, that's a taller task. I'm with you. I thought when was it last year, he didn't look like anything more than a special teamer and kind of fringe player, spot guy occasionally. He's really come on. He's turned into a pretty good player this year.
Yeah. And you want that rotation, especially if they're tired, right? Mm-hmm. They were rotating him and Dre on early downs against the Cowboys, and it seemed to be working out really nicely until he got hurt, right? And especially now, if they're coming off a really intense game and a short week. I know it's one day, but I don't think it can be overstated, really, that extra day of rest plus travel, it impacts them. And, we've been saying, oh, young team, they don't know what they don't know, but they also don't know how to prepare, I think, for these kinds of games. So, all right, we're at about 40 minutes. So, Dusty, I want to know, going into this game, final thoughts, anything that you are really looking out for, keys to the game, an X factor.
You could go 1,000 different ways. Yeah, I think
take it anywhere you want, my friend.
I am so excited about this game. My hopes are way too high, which means my hopes are going to be either dashed into the winds or I will be insufferable for the next week. I am so excited about this game. I've got this entire season. I had no hopes. I hope they would show some promise by the end of the year, and it turns out they did. They did show some promise by the end of the year. So this is amazing. It's been such a fun team to watch. Like I said, I think My X factor, I'll just go. I'll double down. I'm gonna say Tucker Craft because I think based on what they want to do, and this also depends on if Greenlaw's out there or not. LaFleur's got a lot of that Shanahan in him, right? Like he wants to mess with linebackers, all that motion stuff. All they're doing, they're trying to get you declare something before the snap as far as what you're going to do. They want to mess with the eyes of the linebackers. They've got really good eyes, dude. But if Greenlaw's not out there, they get a little worse. And so one of the ways you can then do that is with those two tight end sets. They've been running a lot of it's either balanced formations or they'll put two tight ends on one side. You can mix up a lot of like switch releases off of there. They block so well. We see some of that as well. So it's like the run blocking. Musgrave's a better blocker already than I thought he was ever going to become. And Kraft went from lost to from week one to like an absolute dog by the end of the year. So both those guys can sell the run. So I think what LaFleur will want to do, I just said, I think they're going to try to avoid the middle of the field a little. I think if they can get those linebackers moving a bit in the middle of the field, he will attack that. That's what he wants to do. I think Kraft is a huge part of that as far as selling the run, leaking out, messing with some of those things. So I don't think he's going to have the biggest game. I don't think Kraft is going to go for 150, but I think his impact on this game and what he's able to draw in the defense to kind of take him on either in the run game. I mean, some of that stuff with that leak to Musgrave, a lot of that was based off of they kept hammering that linebacker over and over again. Some of that was Kraft, some of that was the tackles, and then eventually he was like, "Well, I'm not getting hit anymore," and then Musgrave just ran right past him. So it's those calculated, almost. I don't know about a safe game plan. I can see like those calculated shots, those calculated hits over the middle based off of some of what you're doing with Kraft. So for me, he's kind of I think maybe I have a weakness for tight ends because for years I was like DeGora is going to be the guy that's going to unlock this LaFleur offense, and that didn't happen. But now it's Tucker Kraft, and I believe in Tucker Kraft. So I'm just going to say Tucker Kraft until he proves that that's not the case. I think.
I think that's already probably a safer pick. And,
Yeah.
Every time I watch DeGora miss a block, I was like, man, I went to the bat for this guy over and over again. I did that. Why did I keep doing that?
I tried to on draft night. Yeah, it was not good. Perry, you have an X factor?
Oh, I was going to ask you. I mean, this is probably a cop out. I have two thoughts. One is I'm watching Zach Tom. Like he's just been a monster all season, and he's I think starting to finally get his recognition. He took care of business, last weekend, and I think this is gonna be the toughest test for sure. I think the 49ers are gonna really throw some fun stuff there at their offensive line, but if he can protect Love, I think the pass game is going to do all right. My other thought is I actually wouldn't be surprised if Love threw a pick in this game. I'm almost expecting it, but I also think that it's okay. Maybe I'm just talking myself into this. But he hasn't thrown a pick in 20 some odd touchdown. Like it's been a while, and this is Maggie said it. This is a pick friendly secondary. They are ball hawks. Quarterbacks throw interceptions. Even Aaron Rodgers threw interceptions. It's more about how they bounce back from said interceptions, and all the Packers need to do is win the turnover battle. That means getting theirs from Brock, getting theirs from this 49ers offense themselves, right? It can be 2-1. So I think I'm interested in seeing how they do that if and when that interception comes and not allowing it to set them back. But I think don't be alarmed if that happens in this game. It's okay. That's really negative to end on. I'm sorry.
No, but, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting point because where I was going to take it kind of was just, we talked about the expectations of the season and were there any, and buzzword drink, it was an evaluation year and you were just trying to see what you had at quarterback, and where this team is ending the season is already exceeding the expectations that were set on, oh, well, it's a building block year and isn't it going to be fun to see this offense in year two? Like, yes, it will be fun to see this offense in year 2, but right now they're in the divisional round of the playoffs. So, and yeah, I mean, I think this is a test in adversity because arguably there was not a lot of adversity in the Dallas game. Everything kind of went their way. And when you're talking about a young team learning to play in the postseason, learning to play on the road, learning to play in hostile environments, you couldn't have scripted a better wild card round for a lot of these young guys. And yeah, Jaden Reed didn't get a catch. Christian Watson had a catch, but as far as like the experience, it's pretty easy breezy for those guys, which is great and largely because of the way that they played. You know, they didn't just luck into it. But I don't think the lightning is going to strike twice in a bottle. And if it does, fantastic. Then just buy your tickets to the Super Bowl, I guess. But no, like there's going to be some battle testing in this one, and it's not going to come as easy, and it could be a shootout, and the defense, you know, might drop a pick or it might not look as pretty. And I think that's also invaluable for this team. Like Perry said, like you don't want to talk yourself into a loss, but I think the lesson is also that they're still learning from this, and to be exceeding expectations already, it's you learn from losses just like you learn from wins. And as much as we want this obviously to be a winning environment for them, and it can be, I absolutely think they can win this game, there's also a lot to be learned in adversity and playing in such a battle tested environment.
Yeah. Okay, so your X factor, Maggie Loney.
I mean, I guess to me it's Aaron Jones. Like if Aaron Jones can kind of go toe for toe as the spark plug with McCaffrey and he can like keep the offense going, then I think that there's a chance. If they're in a shootout and Aaron Jones is playing the way that he played the last 4 weeks, I think the Packers can absolutely do it. But if they're just stymied at the line and he can't get anything going, and like if AJ Dillon isn't available, so they can't even really spell him out with anybody that they trust, then I think it's going to be a long day. And I think that's when you maybe see the love picks or the things that haven't happened because they're going to try to start forcing things when the run game stops working.
Yeah. Like the first half of the season when they had no run game.
there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Wrap the show as always, and our honored guest will go first with score prediction.
No pressure.
Oh man, score predictions. I have not really thought about this. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great, in fact. Packers 35-17. Let's go. Let's go.
35-17. Woo! You heard it here first.
I am way too high on whatever hope I have right now. The pessimism will come let's say later in the week. The game's in like 2 days. The pessimism isn't coming. 35-17. Let's go.
I love it, Dusty.
I don't want to follow that.
I can follow it.
Go ahead.
I'm not feeling as optimistic, but I do feel like the Packers have proven that they can be competitive with the best. I do feel like they're going to be competitive. I do feel like they will go into Santa Clara and go toe for toe with the 49ers, which is quite frankly a win in my book. We're not here for moral victories, but we're already so far past what I thought this season would be. So I'm here for it. I think it's a nail biter. I'm going 35-32 49ers. Jake Moody with the win.
That's the vibe that I get. You know, like the Aaron Rodgers watches from the sidelines in overtime, not able to touch the ball kind of vibes, you know, where it's just like it's close and it's attainable, but I don't know if the offense is going to get one more crack at it kind of game. But yeah, I mean, I've seen from this offense that they can hang on with just about anybody, but I hope, you know, maybe this is us not wanting to see a blowout because that would be miserable. We've lived through too many of those, but I do think it's a one-score game. I was thinking like 35-31, 35-28 Niners, where the Packers keep it interesting. I think the Packers will put up points. I just, you know, this defense is so tired, and I don't know if they're going to be able to hang on long enough for the Packers to like end with the ball in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree.
But I like Dusty's best, so we're gonna say that Dusty's is what's gonna happen.
That's the official Packs what she said pick for the week. Take it.
That's the
all right. 2-1. We all hope Dusty's right. How wild would that be? Damn. Does Matt LaFleur win Coach of the Year if he takes his team to the NFC Championship game?
Listen, he should be in the running anyway, right? Like he should absolutely 100% be in the running.
Hey, I am like mayor of Goot for exec of the year award.
Did you see Mike Silver tweeted that he made his vote today for
I
Goody?
saw that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't know how you vote for anyone else at this
Yeah.
point. This is the youngest team.
That's the 0-16 Browns. The youngest team since the 0-16 Browns.
Yeah. Wild.
I had to watch that season too. So
Sorry, Mark. Apologize.
Dusty, this was amazing. I love talking about football with you. I hope everyone else listening enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. Please plug all of your work for everyone.
Oh, it's the internet. Cheesehead TV once a week, so right over there. Passing game stuff, really fun stuff this week. Kind of looked at Love Against the Blitz, which has been awesome. I'm gonna get the thing with the weekly thing with John Kuhn over on Cheesehead TV's YouTube channel. This week was 25 minutes. We usually try to go between 12 and 15, but it's the playoffs, man. So we went a little deeper. Hit 9 plays this week, which was awesome. Get to walk through. I've learned a ton from him this year. Packer Report once a week. I think that went up today. Pack a Day podcast on Wednesdays. Usually do something on RPOs over my Substack on Fridays. I think I'm doing something this week with Joey. Joey from Underage Packers. I'm talking to him tomorrow.
nice.
I talked to someone. Yes, I was on with Andy and Theo Ash yesterday. I told Andy before we started recording yesterday. This week, I did not put this in the universe, but this week I was like, I want as many opportunities to talk about the Packers as humanly possible because it's been such a fun week, and the universe has rewarded me. This has been amazing talking to you all again. Seeing you all again has been incredible. It's been such a fun time. So I think that's all of my stuff this week. And yeah, as always, lovely to talk to you guys. I would do this every single week if you would have me.
I thought you were going to say, I would do this for free. And I was going to be like, well, boy, do we have some news for you?
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, we'll just,
Your wish
we'll
is
talk
our
more football
command.
Yeah,
at the opener of the 2024 season.
absolutely.
Some good games on that one. The Niners could come to town. The Texans could come to town. But we're not here to talk about that yet. This has been the Pack's What She Said podcast. Thank you so much for listening, for joining us. If you're following on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe to the show if you don't already. If you're listening anywhere you find your favorite podcasts, please make sure you're downloading the episodes for us. It really helps us out. You can find the podcast on Twitter at PWSS Podcast. You can find Perry on Twitter at Perry_Goldstein. You can find me on Twitter at Maggie J. Loney. Please follow Dusty and all of his fantastic work. And hopefully we're back later this weekend to talk about a Packers victory. Hopefully we're talking about Dusty's score prediction. And if not, we'll still be here to wrap the season because what a ride it has been. Thank you for taking the ride with us, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.